Welcome to What's Your Signal, the podcast exploring enterprise networking trends and the secure connectivity that underlies it all. You're joined by me, Taylor Walker, and my co-host, Mauricio Stefan. Hey, Mauricio.
Hey Taylor, how's it hanging?
Great. Every single time. You ask me every time, and I always think I'm going to come up with a good answer, and I don't. Um, So I'm just going to get into it. Every so often, a new technology kind of comes on the networking scene and grabs the attention of the industry even before it's fully operational. And I think that network slicing is one of those topics that we've been talking about for a long time, even before we could use it. I'm curious, like, how long would you say that network slicing has been on your nerd radar?
So yeah, thanks. The funny thing enough is that it actually came up on my radar while I was in college, and for people who do watch the podcast, that actually wasn't that long of a time for me. I went to college late in life, but my capstone project in college was around net neutrality, and the topic of slicing is kind of one of the topics that was in there. But really, as part of my role here at Ericsson, it did come more to the forefront a few years ago as it started to get integrated into the 3GPP standards, which is what kind of governs cellular technology. And so, it's something that Ericsson Enterprise Wireless, Ericsson in general, but the Enterprise Wireless Solutions part of Ericsson definitely saw potential um, in those early days. So even before the standard was really ratified, we started working internally and with Greater Ericsson to basically be able to, um, you know, show technical demonstrations of this even before the macro networks were ready. We could demonstrate this in the lab with Ericsson Enterprise wireless endpoints, as well as Ericsson Enterprise, or excuse me, Ericsson network equipment like the RANs and the radios. So definitely been something that I've been looking at for a few years, but now it's really starting to come to the forefront with a protocol that was part of the standard recently, which is uh, URSP, which is user route selection policy, which is how the networks will dynamically deliver slices to devices. And this is where it can really start to get real for our customers.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of realities that and different ways that this can help our customers. And we're going to kind of pull at some of the threads that you mentioned in this episode. And we're happy to welcome Ana Ossa, a senior director of product management at T-Mobile, who's a real expert in this field. So let's get into it. Ana, welcome. We are super thrilled to chat with you today about network slicing, especially given your longtime experience in the cellular networking industry. And you probably get asked about slicing a lot these days. And I'm really curious, like, what your elevator pitch is to kind of help people understand how this technology works and what we're talking about.
Sure. And this will be a short elevator ride. So,
Oh, great.
network slicing is like creating multiple virtual networks within a single 5G infrastructure, each one tailored for specific needs. For example, one slice for low latency applications, or one for ultra fast data, or one for low power IoT devices. So instead of sharing the same network resources inefficiently, each slice is optimized for its intended use, and that way we ensure better performance, security, and efficiency for enterprises, all while offering future proof to scale with the business needs.
All right. So, like, I can't help but think of just typical slice analogies when we talk about network slicing. So I feel like when I first learned about this, I was picturing like when you're ordering pizza for a party and it's like, well, only this guy likes olives, so well, that's what he gets on his slice. That's what he needs, right? And then
That's
maybe
right.
the rest is like for the pepperoni or whatever. Um, so that makes sense. What are there any like key components that are required to implement network slicing? Or what do people need to actually use this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first and foremost, the cornerstone of slicing is you need a 5G standalone network, which is the key for digital transformation and long term growth. A 5G standalone, or 5G SA for short, a core is essential for full network slicing capabilities. That's how we can enable end to end orchestration and virtualized network resources. Second, you need a device that can support 5G SA to connect to the right band and the network capabilities. And third, that device's operating system must also support slicing.
And is it pretty easy to make those things happen? Like, do most things have like 5G SA now, or is it getting more predominant, or where are we at in that?
So we're starting to see more of that in the network environment, in the ecosystem. More devices are starting to support 5G SA with the associated operating systems. In the US, T-Mobile is the first carrier to have a 5G standalone core. And we have also been able to start offering slicing capabilities because of that core and partner with the ecosystem providers to ensure those devices that are going to leverage this slice have the correct capabilities in them.
So, Anna, I know one thing that I come across a lot is people equate slicing and 5G SA as the same thing, right? You said that they were like SA is required for slicing, but slicing is not the only thing that 5G SA gives you. And so I just wanted to confirm with you that that's accurate, right? Is like while SA is required for slicing, slicing is not the totality of what 5G SA delivers. Am I correct or way off base there?
You are 100% correct. To bring into today's world, so 5G SA is the core network that T-Mobile leverages for 99% of our network and our communication, but that doesn't mean that every single data traffic, every single transaction happens over a slice. Slicing is one of the key capabilities that is unlocked for our customers because of 5G SA.
We're really lucky to have you on because T-Mobile's been at the forefront of this, and so you have had more time to kind of see um, how network slicing works and what the impact is for the end user. And I would love if you could kind of share, how does network slicing enhance performance compared to, if you just had everybody uh, using the same slice, so to speak? Like, what are some of the benefits that you've heard from customers or seen yourself?
Yeah, and comparing it maybe to traditional cellular networks that typically provide a one size fits all model where all devices and all applications compete for the same resources. Um, Network slicing provides additional benefits, as you can imagine. Number one, it allows to provide optimized resources. So each slice is optimized for that use case. For example, ultra reliable, low latency communications for autonomous vehicles versus just a high throughput for HD streaming. Another one is, for example, it also offers reduced congestion. So mission critical applications that are optimized to reduce the effects of congestion from regular data traffic. Also, better efficiency. So operations can dynamically allocate resources based on real-time demands and prevent an over-provisioning or underutilization of the resources. And very important too, it offers strong security. When you apply a network slice security to provide enhanced data protection, it helps reduce the risk from shared infrastructure threat.
And are the slices that you've gone through, so that you listed out, like ultra reliable, low latency, enhanced mobile broadband, the I think like you said, massive machine communications, public safety, I think is one. Are those it? Or can customers come in and say, like, actually, I want a slice that does this? Like, is it customizable or do they just choose from those slices?
It's a combination of both. So slicing is an emerging field, and we're partnering with our customers to understand what are those common use cases that warrant a slice. The first slice that we launched to market is TSIM Secure, which is focused on security. The second slice that we've launched to market is T Priority, that allows first responders to leverage this technology to prioritize their communications all the time. And as the market and the needs evolve, we have been partnering on slices to work on point of sales to secure the transactions and ensure those happen, or photojournalism or broadcasting. So it depends on the use cases that we see our customers needing the most that warrant that dedicated virtualized network slice.
Makes sense. And how can you touch a little bit more too on SLAs and quality of service and how network slicing has kind of impacted that? Does it make it much of a difference having this now?
Yeah, absolutely. So with network slicing, we are also transforming how we do QoS and SLAs because now we allow the businesses to set performance metrics per slice, whether it's latency or speed or bandwidth or reliability. They can also customize the SLAs for different applications. For example, again, providing ultra low latency for industrial automation while offering high bandwidth for video conferencing. We can also prioritize mission critical applications over generic traffic and offer dynamic scaling, adjusting to the needs of the business and the network conditions. So, for example, an enterprise running an AI driven robotics in a factory can have optimized slice for millisecond latency, while another slice can manage routine office communications.
So, Anna, one of the things that we notice here at Ericsson Enterprise Wireless is that, especially with business applications as opposed to consumer applications, right? Consumers more heavy on the download. They're consuming content. They're consuming, mostly content, I guess.
Right.
But businesses are either uploading that content or have other kind of large upload. You mentioned like public safety, right? Lots of video in public safety, body cams, dash cams, even firefighters and paramedics are starting to wear body cams and have dash cams, for their protection and interaction. Is slicing away? The reason why I mention that is all those applications are more heavy uploaded. Is slicing a way to be able to provide additional upload capacity to those business applications that do require more upload than download speed?
Yeah, what I would say is slicing will help optimize that traffic. So let's use point of sale as an example. While the traffic might be small, is critical traffic to secure a transaction that's happening at a business, and that's the heartbeat of their operations. So slicing will help prioritize and create a bandwidth allocation for that specific traffic, while any other traffic that might be going through the router at the store will go through the regular network protocols. For again, T priority is allocating 5 times network resources to the traffic of the devices of the public safety users. So it depends on the use case. We can prioritize and we can optimize the traffic for the applications that this slice is developed for.
Mauricio, I'm curious, just based on your experiences at Ericsson Enterprise and with our customers, what are some of the situations where you kind of see network slicing making a big difference? And Anna, you're welcome to jump in on this as well.
Yeah, so I mean, the first one, right? T priority is going to be a big one, right? So imagine a situation, and this situation occurs probably hundreds, I won't say hundreds of times a day, let's say hundreds of times a month across the globe, right? Is like you think about large events, sporting events, trade shows, conferences, other large gathering, Comic-Con, those kind of things. The networks around those venues aren't built for the times that they are having an event. They're built for the 80% rule, right? The normal traffic there. But during those times of events, it's critical for first responders to have communication, especially over the cellular network. So the T priority slice allows for everybody else to, unfortunately, compete for the normal network resources while the first responders have that slice carved out to them to ensure that they have that critical communication during those events, especially if an emergency happens during the events.
Mm.
Other applications, right, are the same kind of things, right? A lot of times in retail and other customer service things like insurance, tax preparers, we're in that season here in the U.S. where people are going to visit those locations. Restaurants, they want to offer guest Wi-Fi, but they're concerned about their WAN bandwidth consumption that the guest users will use. Slicing will allow them to have a slice specifically for their business applications like point of sale, loyalty programs, signage, that kind of stuff, and then have a best effort slice for their guest Wi-Fi. So they're still able to offer that guest Wi-Fi in that visit without compromising the bandwidth for their critical business applications. And like those are just a couple of the real world scenarios that we see, and there's so much more that we could do with IoT that requires smaller amounts of bandwidth and less latency compared to other applications. And so you're able to not just segment those applications on the LAN, but start to segment them on the cellular WAN and maintain that quality of service from LAN to WAN in a manner on cellular that we weren't able to do before without other protocols running or private APNs or private cellular networks. And so this is just kind of evolving the cellular network in a way that helps people continue to prioritize the traffic that they need.
Yeah, and I can build on that too in a real world scenario. So during the Las Vegas Grand Prix last year, we leveraged multiple slicing capabilities simultaneously. That's one of the benefits of slicing when I talked about scaling, that it allows you to not just scale your operations, but also think about, can I use multiple slices simultaneously for different use cases, like Mauricio was explaining. So at the Las Vegas Grand Prix, we powered all of the point of sale terminals for all purchases during the event. That's food, beverages, merchandising, ticketing for the entire show, leveraging a slice. Also, the race broadcast utilized 5G connected cameras across the entire show, both on the race circuit and other fan zones around the track. And photographers were able to move around the race freely since they could wirelessly upload photos rather than have to seek out a hardwired connection or have runners physically transport SIM cards with their high resolution images. So this is just one of the real world examples where we're seeing not just one, but multiple slices being used at a single event.
And the ability to, I'm just thinking about like an event that size and how I don't want to diminish the amount of work that went into preparing for something like that, but wow, how much faster to be able to get those things set up than like back in the day. You can set up those networks versus, okay, we've got to like run wires to install this or do that. Like it's like we can set up these networks, we're ready to go. Like it's got to be kind of cool to see how much more simple it is to bring something like that to life than it has been in the past.
100%. Scalability is not just a scalability because you can do more, but scalability because you can do it faster and in
Hmm.
places that you couldn't before, or a cost or timelines that were prohibitive to the customer's goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And with network slicing now being a viable option, I feel like I remember when we first started talking about it and it was like, yeah, it's coming, and everybody was excited. Now it's here. What do you think are some factors to sort of consider when determining if network slicing is something that a company should use versus other solutions?
Yeah, so they need to be asking themselves some key questions, and factors to consider are, what are the most critical applications, and do they require optimized network resources? What are the use cases needs, and do they require low latency, high bandwidth, or massive IoT? From a cost and benefit perspective, is the investment justified based on the operational efficiency and competitive advantages that I'm going to get from it? Or how will network slices improve our business operations? From a security and compliance perspective, what are the security and compliance needs that I have as a business, and does slicing provide an advantage over traditional networks? Um, Scalability, I can talk enough about it, but will the business needs dynamically change and resource allocations in the future need to expand? And last but certainly not least, from an integration into existing networks, do we have the 5GSA infrastructure in place, or do we need to upgrade? Or how can I integrate with my existing legacy infrastructure with network slicing? So there's a lot of questions that we need to think through, or that a business can think through when considering network slicing. And by addressing these questions, they can make informed decisions about integrating network slicing into their digital transformation strategy.
Absolutely. I feel like when people hear about network slicing, it's one of those things that not everybody has had a chance to experience firsthand yet. So it can be a little, I don't want to say scary, but kind of, just a little bit like, we're not really sure how to approach this. And I appreciate that you took the time to chat with us because I think you made the topic approachable and helped to kind of break down what this could look like for businesses. And so we really appreciate that. Thanks for taking out the time to join us.
Well, happy to. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, that was a good conversation with Anna. Like I mentioned towards the end, I think that some of these new technologies can be a little intimidating, but it's good to just kind of hear how simple they can be and how easy to implement they could be. One question that I did have that I kind of just popped into my brain is, Mauricio, when you were talking about use cases, I was thinking about how there's a slice that's dedicated specifically to public safety. And is that something that works in tandem with something like FirstNet, or is it a replacement for something like FirstNet, or how do you feel like those two kind of go together?
Yeah, so I think I won't say it's a replacement for FirstNet. I think it's a different technology than FirstNet, right? So FirstNet, as well as T-Mobile's first responder, prior to T Priority, their first responder network, they operate on basically priority and preemption, and that basically means that they're using the same network resources, going back to kind of the stadium use case that I talked about, right? Imagine 40,000, 50,000, 100,000 people all trying to connect to the same towers, to the same network. That includes the first responders in that group of people. And so the way that those networks worked today or before T priority is their traffic would be identified in that mass of traffic and given priority and preemption over everybody else. Now, that did work and it did offer them the ability to communicate, but it was susceptible to the other noise on the traffic, right? The towers being oversubscribed. Where this is carving out a specific portion of the network that only they can access. So I do think that this will be an improvement over that priority and preemption, and does have the potential to be the new method for first responder communications. Because again, it does carve those specific network resources off for them.
Yeah. Thanks for answering that for me. Did you have any other thoughts or takeaways that you wanted to share before we close out?
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned right that this can be a complicated topic, and it can. Like, right, I mentioned it in the intro, right? I threw out things like 3GPP standards, and I threw out things like URSP. But I
Yeah, my
think
eyes
the
just glazed over.
yeah, the one thing that I think I want to mention, right, is the same thing that we talk about when we talk about SD-WAN, when we talk about SASE and zero trust, and when we talk about AI, and we've talked about all of these really technical topics and tried to make them approachable for everybody. But again, the one thing that I think that we want to communicate that runs through all these things is these are all separate tools in IT or OT's tool bag to address their needs, right? And so, really, what it comes down to is you need to make sure that you understand the problem that you're trying to solve, and then working with a good, technology advisor partner to understand what are the best technologies out there to solve those problems. Because slicing may not be for everybody, right? I mentioned in retail and customer kind of service type industries, restaurants, tax preparers, insurance, that kind of stuff. They might not all want to offer guest Wi-Fi. They might only have connectivity for the employees in the office, and in that case, and they may not let the employees have their personal devices on the network. In that case, the only network traffic is business traffic, which means you may or may not benefit from having a slice. Now, it gives you the opportunity to offer other things with that slice without interfering your business traffic, but that's really up to you and what your goals and the problems you're trying to solve are. So, once again, just like every other technology topic, it's one of those things where it's like, make sure you understand what problems you're trying to solve so that you're not trying to apply the wrong technology to solve that problem.
Absolutely. You've been banging that drum since day one on here. I love it. And thank you to all who have been listening since day one. If you enjoyed this conversation about the how and the why behind network slicing, please share it with a friend and then rate and subscribe to What's Your Signal wherever you listen to podcasts.